Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more geography now, and this time we are on to Palau. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love if you join the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. And please do go check out the gaming channel here on YouTube. I would love if you join the Discord and followed me. Wait, nope, shit, I already... God damn it. Brain rewired. Please do go check out the gaming channel here on YouTube. I upload dumb clips and old streams. Goddamn, that was really bad. I don't really know anything about Palau before we dive in here, so let's just get straight into the video, huh?
All right, Palau.
We'll ignore the embarrassment that I just had.
Want the quick summary? Once upon a time, there was a custody battle with a child between the US and Japan, but also the Philippines too, kind of. Yet for some reason, Spain and Germany were arguing, yet the baby was technically descended from Taiwan, who had no claim over it, yet gave them a lot of money because they didn't want China to get too cozy, and they make great barbecue.
Barbecue's the most important part.
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey everyone, I'm your host Barbs. I love Oceania, the world's least talked about and explored region. Palau is a nation that's just starting to make its debut on the vacation getaway list. People are now just starting to talk about it. Each island kind of tells a different story. Let's jump into the map now, shall we?
Bum, bum, bum.
Palau has gone through so much chaos and yet is still kind of lucky. Lucky in the sense that, unlike their other Micronesian cousins, geographically, they kind of have a sweet spot close to the major land masses. For one, the country is located between the Philippine Sea and the North Pacific. It is essentially the furthest western part of the Carolina Islands and the Pacific Ocean region known as Micronesia, not to be confused with the Federated States of Micronesia, which is a country within Micronesia. And it is the closest to major land masses of Asia and Australasia. The nation is just east of the Philippines and north of the West Papua region of Indonesia, shared with Papua New Guinea. It is made up of over 340 islands, some say as much as 500.
That's a lot of islands.
If you include smaller rocks and islets, the largest one being Babeldaw Island, which holds the capital Melekeok, or Nurulmud, yeah, that's how you pronounce it, which is the least populated capital in the world with only about 400 people. Cool capital building though. You can also find the largest airport most people fly into, being Roman Temetuchi
How many people live here? Only like a couple thousand?
International. However, there are also small airstrips that service the Anguar and Pelelu Islands. Nonetheless, the largest city is Koror, which is on a separate island just south of Babeldaw, which is where most of the commerce and action happens. The country is further divided into 16 states, each with their own little flag. Don't forget these little islands way down south, known as the Southwest Islands, also belonging to them as well. The Hatoho Bay State is the furthest one, made up of Toby and the Helen Reef, the southernmost point nearly 400 miles or 640 kilometers from Babeldaw. Populated by only about 43 people, making it the least populous first-level administration in the world. Helen Reef.
What does that mean? First level administration. Expand what that means, please.
Only has like 3 people living on it. Most of the country is interconnected through a series of water taxis and ferries that hop between islands, Malakal Harbor being the largest shipping port. However, at about 68 kilometers or 38 miles, Babeldaw Island is the only one with an extensive roadway network that goes all the way to Conley, the northernmost point of the country, crossing over into Koror via the Koror-Babeldaw Bridge, whereas 2 other islands, Mayungs and Malakal, are also connected via bridge. Speaking of Palau's geographic uniqueness, it's also important to note that just like we mentioned in the Marshall Islands and Federated States of Micronesia episodes, Palau is the third and final compact-free association state with the USA. What is compact-free association? Ken, explain.
A compact-free association means that Palauans, Marshallese, and Micronesians not only have access to certain U.S. social services like mail, education, and defense, but they're also allowed to freely enter and move about the USA and live there with no issues. Citizenship also comes easy if they wish to apply for it.
And thank you, Ken. You'll notice a lot of the buildings and sites have plaques dedicated to the countries that have funded or invested in them. The bridge was built by the Japanese, the Capitol was built by the Taiwanese, but inspired by Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. The list goes on. Otherwise, I talked to some of you guys, the Palau and geography peeps. Yes, we have people from Palau that watch this show, and many of you gave me a list of notable places to check out in case if you decide to visit, such as the National Museum, the Eptison Museum, the Nurulmud Capitol Building, the stone-faced monoliths of Narelong, the Tet El Bad stone coffin, the Yappies quarry site in Sunken Stone, Bloody Nose Ridge, so many World War II Japanese sites, including a Shinto shrine, Thousand Man Cave in Pelelu, Milky Way Rock Islands, the Kayangel Atoll. Yeah, you can tell how there's kind of like a lot of World War II and Japanese stuff lingering around. Yeah, we'll explain how it got that way in a sec. But first, let's go swimming with some non-poisonous jellyfish, shall we? Yeah, Yeah, they have a cool lake with non-poisonous jellyfish you can swim with. It's like one of their
They
top
won't
tourist
sting you?
destinations. However, due to overcrowding, the government limits visits to avoid harming the fragile ecosystem. And that's the thing, Palau is a front runner in oceanic conservation efforts. About 60% of its marine area is protected territory. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves though. First off, Palau essentially sits right on the Ring of Fire at the Palau Trench, which is an offshoot crack near the Mariana Trench, not too far from Challenger Deep, the deepest oceanic depth discovered. This is basically how the country formed, as volcanic activity forged the islands we see today in a long, wispy, speckled archipelago following the large Babeldab Island, which is the second largest island in Micronesia after Guam. Most of the country is lush and green with tropical vegetation. Most volcanic activity is extinct today, and the tallest point, Mount Narellas, lies on Babeldab. In fact, Babeldab, of course, has all the other extreme physical points, like the largest lake, Lake Nardok, the largest freshwater lake in Micronesia. There are many small rivers and streams that cross the country, the largest one feeding into the Naramedu Bay, like these three, but the largest one, the Nurmeskong River. From there, the country smears into the ocean with small, mostly uninhabited, lush green islets and mangroves enclosed by a giant barrier reef that stretches 490 square miles or 1,260 square kilometers. This place is loaded with too many amazing natural sites like the Rock Islands, a UNESCO heritage site, a bunch of mushroom-shaped bulbous islands that pop up out of the ocean like bubble wrap. Coral reefs and diving spots are everywhere, and even underwater caves, the most famous one being the Chandelier Cave at Narol. Otherwise, even though the islands only make up about 177 square miles or 460 square kilometers in area, the nation's exclusive economic zone extends even further to about 200,000 square miles or over 500,000 square kilometers of ocean, about the size of France. In 2009, the government signed over about 80% of which to become a marine reserve and the world's first shark sanctuary, a fully protected no-take zone in which things like mining and fishing cannot take place. Although scuffles with their neighbors crossing into their waters have been documented, and ocean pollution coming from said nations have also been an issue from time to time. Although keep in mind, they are generally outside of the typhoon zone and don't usually get hit with them. The largest one was Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, but it only did like a little damage to some houses and there are no fatalities or major injuries reported. Alright, so that's just about it. It's time for my triple shot of espresso break, which means it's time for Noah.
My turn. Palau is a tropical island nation, so of course, no surprise, you're gonna find some tropical stuff with their physical makeup. There are about 150 species of bird found in Palau, including the national animal, the fruit dove, over 1,300 species of fish, and 700 species of coral. In terms of mammals, there are less than 20 species, most of which are water mammals like dugongs and whales. Otherwise, on land, they have 3 main bat species, including the endemic large Palau flying fox and the crab-eating macaque monkey. Economically speaking, they are relatively better off than most Pacific Island nations, as the third wealthiest nation by GDP per capita in Oceania after Australia and New Zealand. The nation depends heavily on 3 main sectors: subsistence agriculture, fishing, and most important one, tourism, which in itself makes about 80% of the GDP. Thanks to the various blessed diving spots and white sand beaches, Palau has become an international hotspot for visitors abroad, over 80% of whom come from either Japan, Taiwan, and the US. This employs about 3/4 of the workforce through the service sector. The problem is there are more people coming in than the entire population of Palau, which in return has
Only 20,000 Palauans? That's more than I thought there were. I thought they were under 10,000, honestly.
caused a strain on the people's rush to sustain and accommodate in the long run, as well as avoid environmental damage. This has caused the government to take action on things like instigating a visa policy, limiting the amount of flights and visitors, as well as access to certain islands. Otherwise, everyone's favorite, food. Now in Palau, the staple
Ooh, looks like we got a decently long segment of food here. All right. 7 minutes, 30 seconds too. Okay, it looks like it's just another 30 second. It needs to be longer than 30 seconds. Now, I know Palau is small, but goddammit, they are still part of Micronesia, and you know Micronesians have food that fucking slaps, and lots of it.
you can find with many dishes would most likely be either taro, yams, or tapioca cooked in various ways. And of course, fish. We asked you guys, the Palauan jogger peeps, to give a list of some top notable dishes from Palau. And some things you guys mentioned include things like beltakal soup, tinola, ulkoy, Palauan-style halo-halo, fruit bat soup, ugayab. And there are so many fruits like passion fruit, papaya, mango, soursop, and rambutans. And of course, many Western and Asian dishes that permeated the mainstream gastronomy. You can find sushi, burgers, and pizza everywhere as well. Regardless of all the outside influence, the Palauan people have stuck close to their roots and built a nation that is specifically theirs. Which brings us to...
Now, Palau is strange. It's like a kind of American-y, Japanese-y hybrid Micronesian confusion fest with some Filipinos sprinkled in for good luck. It's interesting to see how over time they kind of grew into what they are now. First of all, the country only has about 22,000 people and is the 4th least populated nation in the world. The country is made up of primarily people that identify with ethnically Palauan, a Micronesian people group, at about 73%. About 17% are Filipinos, and the rest are other groups, mostly Asians and a few whites, mostly Americans. They use the US dollar as their currency, they use the types A and B plug outlets, and they drive on the right
Damn right they do. Let's go Palau. Correct side of the road, baby. Fuck you, Britain.
side of the road. Now, Palau's interesting because although the majority of people speak either Palauan or English, there are 5 official languages, including Sonsorol and Tobian, spoken by about 600 people on the 2 islands of Sonsorol and Tobi. And the last one, Japanese, believe it or
It's cool that those very niche languages, those small 600 spoken people are able to keep the language alive. Love. I may not speak another language outside of English because I tried and I failed, but I still love language, and I love knowing that certain languages are still being kept alive. Now I wonder if they have it what's it called? Written fucking god. Why am I'm blanking on the word preserved. Like if the language is preserved outside of those that speak it so that it won't truly die off, like they have it, I don't know, the rules of the language or whatever written down somewhere. I don't know.
not.
No way.
Yep, it's actually only official on the island of Anguar, making it the only place outside of Japan in which Japanese is an official language up to the state level.
How did it get that way?
Well, long story short, World War II. It was kind of like...
All right, you belong to us now. Start learning Japanese.
Wait, what?
All right, Japan's out. Start learning English.
Nani te ite no? Today you can see Japanese written and spoken throughout much of the country, even outside of Anguar. Mostly by elders and de facto speakers as a second language. It is taught as an elective in schools and used widely in the tourism industry to accommodate the influx of Japanese visitors. The Palauan language, though, is pretty interesting. It's classified as an Austronesian language. It only has 10 consonants and 6 vowels. And nobody even knows exactly where the language came from. Like, it's kind of Micronesian, but not exactly. The CH is just a glottal stop and makes no sound. And the NG sometimes sounds like an N, and sometimes a hidden vowel comes out of nowhere, even if it isn't written. It's confusing. Now, what exactly makes a Palauan a Palauan? Well, first of all, they are part of the broader Micronesian ethnic group along with their siblings, the Marshallese, Micronesians, Guamians, and Mariana Islanders. Let's put it this way. If the Pacific Islands were a family, Palau and Guam would kind of be like the better off, lucky, outgoing, more connected uncles. They have access to international business, whereas their cousins are a little more reserved
Property
and less
bros.
engaging. Now, despite the obvious influence from outside forces like the USA and Japan, Palau still has retained its traditions and customs. And with that, here's Random Hannah with culture stuff.
Look, dude, nobody cares.
Wait, who are you?
I'm Ian.
Get out of here, husband.
Wait, why don't you two just share the whole thing together?
Okay. It is believed that the original inhabitants of Palau came from Austronesian settlers. They originated in what is now Taiwan about 4,500 to 5,000 years ago. Okay, Ian, now you try the second part. Just read the teleprompter.
Okay. Palauans follow traditions and customs similar to their Micronesian cousins. For example, most societies are matrilineal, following inheritance through the mother's side.
Not bad.
Thank you.
The yap stones we discussed in the Micronesian episode were often carved and shipped out from Palau. Some other aspects of Palauan culture include things like being heavy chewers of betel nut.
They have a firstborn child ceremony.
In traditional dances, women will often wear orange and yellow
But if you're the second born child, no ceremony for you. Fuck you.
colored grass skirts with stone bead necklaces.
And men might be seen wearing dugong vertebrae bracelets.
And baseball is the most commonly played sport. They won numerous Micronesian
USA.
Games titles, and they were the champions of the 2007 Pacific Games in baseball.
Most Palauans adhere to a form of Christianity, either Protestant or Roman Catholic. However, there is a syncretic sect called Modakne that fuses Christianity with tradition Palauan deities.
Which is practiced by about 8% of the country.
If there were 2 symbols that epitomize Palauan identity, though, it would have to be the circle circle divided into 4 symbolizing wealth, and the traditional thatched gable house known as the bai.
Elaborately decorated with painted carvings on the
Damn.
posts and walls, these structures served as community meeting houses and have been constructed before any Western or Eastern involvement. And now we move on to Keith with music no one cares about or wants to see him on the screen. Ugh.
What's wrong with Keith?
He's a Gators fan.
Keith must die.
Ugh.
What's wrong with Keith?
He's a Gators fan.
Keith must die.
By the way, I'm wearing a Rush t-shirt. This shirt is awesome. Rush is my favorite band. I love Rush. That's my commentary on their band. So therefore they can't sue us for fair use. Music in Palau is interesting because there are really no intellectual property laws or restrictions. So people can kind of just piggyback off of each other without any repercussions. Traditionally, stick dances and percussion were and still are common, especially during events. In terms of mainstream modern music, obviously due to the American and Japanese influence, many songs from Palau include elements taken from each technique and style. They even have their own Palau style of country music.
Thanks, Keith and Hannah. Even though Hannah's not here. And now history. And the quickest way I can put it, Austronesian
hear it.
sailors, most likely indigenous from Taiwan and Papua New Guinea, come in. They mix together. Captain Henry Wilson shipwrecks on Oolong Island. Europeans come in and meet the natives. Prince goes to England but dies of smallpox. British give islands to Spain, introducing Catholicism. Spain sells it to Germany. Japan invades and takes over in World War II. US comes in and fights off Japanese. They become a trust territory of the US. 1994 Compact Free Association with the US and independence. And there we go, pretty much. Some famous people.
Okay, I mean, he's not. Maybe there's just nothing exciting that's been happening politically for Palau, since the Japanese conquest. Which I think he was a little wrong. I think with the whole bit there. Not just he oversimplified it. I think a bit too much. Japan took it as part of World War One. Taking it from Germany, and then they remained the occupiers of it until the end of World War II, when the U.S. came in with the island hopping and the treaty, blah blah, ending World War II in 1945. So yeah, but aside from that, I mean, not bad. I just don't know. I'm sure he's probably missing some things that Palauans may think are important, but as an outsider, I think that was passable. I think that was a good bit. Because, like, I mean, it doesn't seem like a place that's having really much social strife since free association, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't hear anything. But also, I'm not Palauan. And I don't know if that would even get into considered newsworthy for American media. So I don't know, maybe something did happen. But anyway.
Who you guys suggested we mention include people like Prince Lee Bu, Haruo Remelik, Gabriela Ngirmang, Kuniwo Nakamura, Lisa Sande, Lazarus Sali, Peoria Koshiba, Steve Patrice, Noah Eteong, Yubi Misia, Keisha Noel Keen, and Kendall Titimel. Alright, that just about sums up this segment. Now we need to Palau through the last segment of this episode, shall we?
Nice, Barbie.
Now, Palau may be small, but they have an interesting way of reaching out to the world. A lot of people seem to want to come, but they're kind of like a little inhibited, and they kind of want to make sure that things don't get too crazy. Filipinos share the same former colonization status under Spain, and at one point was part of the Philippines for a short period of time under the First Philippine Republic before breaking away. Many Filipinos live in Palau, and the Palauan accent even kind of sounds similar to Filipino English. The closest family members are, of course, their fellow Micronesians, the Federated States of Micronesia, the Marshall Islands, Guam, and the Mariana Islands. These guys culturally share the most in common, and they love each other. Every so often, they also visit each other as well. Taiwan, on the other hand, is one of the few countries that they recognize as opposed to the People's Republic of China. They give lots of medical and education assistance to Palau that allows Palauans to study in Taiwan. They also have a patient referral program that allows patients to receive treatment in Taiwan. Taiwan also kind of acts as like a shield that fends off the waves of Chinese investors and overwhelming tourists that flock in. For their best friends, though, most might say either Japan or the USA. It's kind of like a weird joint custody battle that both have between the country. Yes, lots of drama happened in World War II, but they quickly moved on. The US is kind of like the stepfather that took them in and gave them lots of resources and opportunities, and also gave them a lot of potential to manage themselves as a small country. Japan is and will always be, though, close to their hearts. They are the second largest donor after the US. The emperor and his wife visited in 2015. They love Japanese food and culture. The two nations share the same time zone, and overall, even after colonial times, they've had close ties. In conclusion, Palau is kind of like the interesting offshoot Micronesian that kind of speaks a little bit of Japanese, and they're trying to fend off the massive waves of tourists to maintain their natural beauty. Wow, Palau. Stay tuned, Panama is coming up next.
And that was Geography Now Palau. I think for these smaller countries like the Micronesian island states and other countries similar to that, I think maybe a bigger focus on because really, like, yes, they advertise themselves as Geography Now, but really they also do talk very heavily about the culture. I think they ought to expand a bit on like like food being one thing, right? There is totally way more Palauan food that you could talk about, you could showcase. Maybe it's just me, but I would love to see more food. Right? Like, I don't know. It feels like this was about the length I would expect for probably Palau. But like, more food. I feel like they maybe could have cut back on the whole. I don't know, maybe more culture. There's totally probably more to talk about. But yeah, just a little nitpick here at the end. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video.